Thank you for that. Hi, everyone. Thank you for being here tonight. My name's Melissa Leinhard. I work for the Planning Commission as the staff liaison with Hillsborough County. I am co-managing this study, the Commercial Locational Criteria Study, with Andrea Papandreou, who's also on this call tonight. Let me please introduce the consultants working on this study, the talented Pat Tyeski and Nick Hill from S&ME. Pat and Nick, take it away.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much. Let me go ahead and share the presentation so we can go ahead and get started. All right, so once again, my name is Nicholas Hill. Hopefully you are here for the public workshop for the CLC update project, and if not, just go ahead and type in the way in the chat what you're looking for and we'll help you get there. Please note, as already previously discussed, this meeting is being recorded and will be posted on the project website just for anyone who missed tonight's meeting. Now, before we finish with the introductions, I just want to give a brief overview of the agenda for tonight's presentation. The first thing we're going to do is talk about the commercial locational criteria, what it is and what it's meant to do. Then we're going to talk about the research and analysis process that's being conducted as part of this update to the CLC. And then we are also going to talk about the public engagement opportunities accommodating for this project, as well as the project schedule. And finally, the bulk of tonight's meeting will be spent during the discussion, where we have some great surveying for you, and then also where we will be discussing next steps as we wrap up. So once again, my name is Nicholas Hill. I'm from S&ME. I'm a staff planner, tend to focus on comprehensive planning, GIS mapping, and consistent with this meeting, community engagement. I'm joined here by Pat Tyeski, our planning director. Pat?
That's me. Hello, everybody. Thank you so much for coming to our meeting, spending a couple hours with us. Hopefully it's going to be less than 2 hours. It'll probably be an hour and a half at the most, but we want to hear from you too. So we want to show you a poll, and we want you to give us your answer. If you have any issues voting or answering the poll, let us know in the chat, and then we'll help you figure out. But the first thing is we want to know about the area where you live. So in your mind, the way you see your area or neighborhood, do you live in a rural area? Do you live in a suburban area? Do you live in an urban area? Or maybe you don't live in Hillsborough County. Can you guys see the questions on your screen? Because this is the first one that we're putting out there.
I can see it.
Okay, so based on the atmosphere that you see in your neighborhood, around your house, would you say that's a rural, suburban, or urban area? All you have to do is click on the circle and the votes will come in. Do we see anybody voting? I don't see any movement here. Maybe I need to vote myself too, so I can see it. Yep, that's true. Okay, so we have received about 5 responses only. Just to give you an idea, rural area would be, 5 acres or more. Some people may have some agriculture. You don't necessarily see a gas station at every corner or McDonald's. A suburban area would most likely be a subdivision, sometimes private roadways, sometimes maybe a gate to get in. The urban area, it's closer to what you would find like within the cities, within Tampa or St. Pete, where you have mostly public streets. You may see, public transit going through. So that's the character that we're looking at. So we have about 6 responses. So we're going to stop right there, and we're going to share the results. Export results. Did you guys see the results as I was talking? Okay, so I think that was it. All right, Nate, back to you.
All right, thank you so much, Pat. So in case you needed a refresher, the commercial locational criteria, or as we commonly refer to it as the CLC, is a set of requirements established under Objective 22 of the future land use element within your comprehensive plan. Now, like your name implies, the CLC is intended to ensure that 1, residents can meet their daily needs, which we'll come back to, for goods and services within a reasonable distance from their home. Commercial activities are integrated seamlessly into the nearby residential neighborhoods, and that new commercial, which services neighborhoods, particularly those that are nearby, do not require a comprehensive plan amendment. Now, what does that mean? Well, it means if a small neighborhood serving convenience store, coffee shop, or beauty salon wants to locate within a portion of the county designated as residential on the future land use map, they would not be expected to go through the comprehensive plan amendment process, which often adds considerable time, resources, and energy to the development process. So when we talk about the commercial locational criteria, or the CLC, we are typically referring to commercial uses which service your daily needs. Now, daily needs can mean one thing to one person and another thing to another, but they typically include things like fresh foods, professional services such as hair cutteries or nail salons, healthcare, and gas stations. Now, they can include several variations on that, very similar uses. If you'd like to see the full listing, that is typically found, or can be found rather, in your land development regulations, primarily under your neighborhood commercial zoning district. Now, before moving on further into this presentation, I think it's important to establish that this particular project is really focused on the smallest scale of commercial development, which is those at the neighborhood level. Neighborhood level commercial typically services just the immediate area residents, and it's close enough for like a maybe 20-minute walk or a 15-minute bike ride or 10 minutes or less car ride, generally speaking. Of course, these terms are flexible in the planning world, much like everything else. As we discussed previously, these can include coffee shops, some retail, neighborhood convenience store, gas station, beauty parlor, what have you, just like we discussed on the previous slide. Now, when it comes to community service areas for those particular types of commercial activities, those often serve multiple neighborhood, and most often, most people drive to these particular types of commercial uses. And then finally, we have the largest scale, at least within this context, which is the regional scale. These typically service multiple communities and obviously even more neighborhoods. Sometimes these service areas for these particular commercial activities, such as a Super Walmart, Super Target, or even IKEA furniture, they tend to, or they can even expand out to several counties. So really today, just to reiterate, we're talking about that neighborhood commercial service area. Now on this slide, I'm going to show you two very different examples of how neighborhood services may integrate into our communities, particularly when they're adjacent to single-family homes. Now, the first example I'm going to show you is in Bakersfield, California. All right. Now, just imagine you live right here on Glen Lake Court, right behind the Albertsons, and you are famous for your spaghetti dinners that you are making tonight. Unfortunately, though, you forgot the pasta sauce. Thank God you live right next to an Albertsons, in fact, probably about 200 feet or less. So that's really great news, especially if you're in a hurry. But unless you want to jump over a 6-foot wall, which you can see the glimmers of in this photo, and walk through the landscaping and track your way through the trees, you will probably just have to walk around the neighborhood first, go out of your cul-de-sac and into the neighborhood and out on that main road, which is Olive Drive. From there, you'll have to make probably an uncomfortable hot walk over Olive Drive, all the ways up through a primarily automobile-oriented parking lot just to get to your destination. Now, what's nice, similar to what we're talking about here in the commercial locational criteria, this site contains numerous neighborhood serving uses such as groceries, haircut, dry cleaners, banks, and restaurants. But you'll notice this particular style of development is disconnected from the neighborhood. Now, alternatively, we see a traditional historic downtown neighborhood in Orlando. Very different context, we understand, but we're just trying to show you the extreme so you can better understand what we're talking about here. They have a corner store immediately adjacent to single-family homes for Eola General, which, as you can see in this photo right here, you can see it's right there on the corner, services corner store needs, and it's right next to single-family homes. It is easily accessible to the surrounding neighborhood, and it blends in really well to the neighborhood, not only thanks to the scale of the building, it looks kind of like the buildings around it, but also because it's placed similar to how the buildings next to it are placed and shares similar architectural styles. Now, if you were to get rid of the canopy here, some of the tables and the landscaping out front, you might even think that that is just another home. So two very different ways for how we can approach how these commercial uses are integrated into our neighborhood. And now that being said, there's numerous opportunities for improvements as part of this update. We list 4 right here, but these, of course, will not be the only 4 things we are looking for as part of this update process. First, we're going to revise the outdated language. It's been a while since the CLC has been updated, so we just want to make sure it's relevant for today. We also want to identify ways to limit the frequency of waiver requests. We also want to reflect the current realities of the commercial marketplace, and of course, the community's desire for more pedestrian, bicycle, and transit opportunities, as we'll discuss more in just a few minutes. We also want to ensure standards are in place to require a more harmonious integration of our commercial uses into our nearby neighborhoods. So we have our objectives laid out in front of us, and as you can see, it's a pretty sizable effort. This is a big topic that we're discussing. But luckily, we don't really have to reinvent the wheel as part of this process. The community, via your wealth of already existing planning documents, have already given us a lot of direction for how the CLC should look as we begin this update process. And although this is an ongoing process, some of the findings that we have observed so far include the desire of the county and its residents to, 1, address transportation and access issues, 2, accommodate for pedestrians, cyclists, and transit users. 3, support the creation and retention of town centers. And 4, implement the commercial locational criteria only in locations desired by the community. Make sure that where the CLC is updated, it's context sensitive and in locations where the community actually desires it to be. We have also begun to look at best practices across the state as well. We've looked at Broward County, Manatee County, Miami County, Pasco, Orange, and Palm Beach. And then we've also expanded our search nationwide to Arlington County, Virginia, Forsyth County, James City County, Richmond, Virginia, and Washington, D.C., all to see how these communities are handling this exact issue. So how are other comparable and notable communities accomplishing this? Well, few communities permit neighborhoods serving commercial within residential areas like Hillsborough County currently does as part of their CLC. Where permitted, most communities require a commercial rezoning that's supplemented by additional compatibility, buffering, and locational requirements. Additionally, those great principles that we all care about, that commercial activity is integrated seamlessly into our neighborhoods, that they have the appropriate buffering to make a more wholesome and better community, all of those principles, what we were talking about earlier, those are traditionally established within the comprehensive plan. But the exact criteria for how the the location of commercial activities should be centered within our communities, those are actually established within the land development regulations, unlike Hillsborough County, which currently has them in their comprehensive plan. Once again, an objective 22 of your future land use element of your comprehensive plan. After this meeting is over, if you really want to have some fun, you can go ahead and take a peek at that just by going on the county's website. And as part of this research and analysis process, I just want to note that we also reviewed over 24 scholarly articles on best practices for our neighborhood commercial development activities. And some of the findings that we found so far has been to increase the flexibility of land use and zoning, make it more of a conversation between the developer, staff, and the community to make sure that these uses integrate harmoniously into our neighborhoods. We also want to empower the private sector to act as and develop these third places in between work and home, where we can actually meet at a coffee shop with our best friends, at a restaurant with our new coworkers, to really build that sense of community. And of course, as the planning field continues to evolve, as Hillsborough County continues to evolve, we want to continue to explore and experiment with and look at new planning tools. One example is an accessory commercial use. So I'm sure everyone in this meeting has heard of an accessory dwelling unit, which is a potential dwelling unit in the back of your lot or on the side of your lot of your single family home, which could serve as an additional unit for dwellings. This is the same concept, but instead some communities are exploring, instead of that additional housing unit on your lot, this is also an additional commercial unit on your lot, which would service very, very, very small retail uses, maybe just as a small honey maker, I think is what someone brought up today in our earlier stakeholder meeting, or it can even be something like a small coffee shop or bakery. Now, we have plenty of public engagement opportunities to take part in as part of this update. This whole public engagement strategy was built from the ground up using the non-discrimination plan as a baseline to develop it. And so the first thing that we developed as part of this update is the public engagement website. And as you can see there on the link, you can access the site really easily just by scanning your phone, taking your phone out and looking your camera at that QR code there, and you can go ahead and take a look at the project website now. Of course, I would prefer for you to pay attention to me because I'm self-centered, but of course, if you want to get a head start and look at that project website while we're already here, you're certainly welcome to do that. I know for a fact my friend and coworker Andrea has already copied that link and we'll be posting it in the chat momentarily. And when you're on that project website, which is good for the web on your desktop or also can be accessed on your phone, we certainly recommend that you go ahead and interact with Community Ideal Wall, which is this great public forum where you can go on there, select a topic you want to talk about related to the project, post your comments, have your other fellow community members upvote, downvote, or even comment on your post, and then you can continue the dialogue from there. Additionally, we recommend you take the public survey, which is online and very brief. I promise it won't take you any more than 5 minutes. If it does, just contact me and complain. That'll help inform the CLC update as we start going through it and drafting the language once we know what the community's priorities are as we go through this public engagement process. Of course, it's not just a public website. Obviously, we're here. So public engagement is expanded farther than just this website and this workshop. We have one Planning Commission briefing coming up this Thursday. We also have one of two public workshops. You're in one right now. The second one, which I'll talk about in a second, is expected to take place in the third week in January of 2022, which is tentative at this moment. We also have 3 stakeholder sessions, which we have just gotten done with as of last week. And then we're also meeting with each member of the Board of County Commissioners to understand what are the realities and needs of their constituents and what they would like to see updated in the CLC as a result. So if I could just rewind real quick to the stakeholder input that we received thus far in our 3 stakeholder interview sessions. They have outlined some really key items and information that we want to keep in mind as we start the update process. Some of these are requirements for accessibility and connectivity for new development must be context sensitive. We understand the needs of the rural community and what they want to see in terms of commercial activity within their communities is going to be different than our suburban and urban areas of the county. So we want to make sure this update to the CLC is context sensitive. We also want to identify opportunities for the CLC to address communities unable to meet their daily needs that we talked about earlier. We've spoken before with numerous other stakeholders, other members of the public. We've heard from you. We've even heard from people who have conducted studies on this, that there are underserved portions of the community currently that are in dire need of these daily needs. And so this commercial locational criteria update is a tool that we can use to address these daily needs. We also learned that residents are willing to walk to meet their daily needs if these nice, quality pedestrian facilities that are comfortable, no matter the weather, are readily available, they'll be willing to use them to replace some of their daily trips. We also want to empower our communities to determine the appropriateness of the commercial locational criteria within their neighborhoods. If you take one peek at the livable communities element portion of your comprehensive plan, you will see that several of the communities within the county, particularly those that are rural in nature, have already decided exactly where commercial activity they want to be or where they want it to be. Some of them don't want it to be within their neighborhood. They don't want it to be near their neighborhood. Some of them pick very specific locations within their community where these commercial activities should be located. And we want to honor them as part of this process, particularly as we update the CLC. And so this is a tentative schedule, our project schedule. As you can see here, we are currently in our neighborhood workshop, our first one. There is 2 scheduled, but after this first neighborhood workshop, we are going to start drafting the CLC. Now that we have your feedback, hopefully after tonight, we're going to start drafting that language. We're going to take all that information, those best practices that we already looked at, those planning documents that we looked at, and your feedback on the website and in person, or virtually rather today, to start drafting that language. So we're going to be working with staff on that all the ways up until January, where after we go through our initial drafting process, you're going to be able to look at it again. Now, we can't guarantee that this will be the 3rd week of January, but we're pretty sure we're headed in that general timeline. Everything after that, including the adoption hearings and the transmittal hearings with the Planning Commission and the Board of County Commissioners, all of that is tentative as of right now. We currently have it scheduled for March and April, but please note this schedule is subject to change based on staff availability, our availability, and other priorities as they come up within the community. So now we get to the fun part of tonight, is where we get to hear from you, from the community, to figure out exactly what are your priorities we should be considering as staff and our team begin to develop the CLC. And Pat is going to go ahead and walk you through some of those polls where we can get our first initial findings of what you think about the CLC. Pat?
All right, so we have 13 questions, and they're very easy questions. Most of them are yes or no questions. And some of them are very similar. So I'm going to take you through them. And the idea is just to get an idea from the people attending this meeting, your opinions, how you feel about this commercial locational criteria concept. So the first question is, were you aware that the county even had a commercial locational criteria before attending this meeting? Did you know that that was a thing in our area? The fact that somebody can come in at a corner, at an intersection, and if they have, the right, if they meet the right criteria, they could have a CVS or a gas station or maybe a small grocery store. Was everybody aware of that? Okay. Looking at the votes, it looks like 75% of the people in attendance knew about it. However, I think I see somebody going through the chat with a no, so we'll take a note of that. Okay, we're going to go to the next question. So number 2, Nick talked about the document research that we performed and all those scholarly articles that he has been reading. Was there anything in that summary that he gave you, anything surprised you, anything that you had no idea was going on, or maybe it was common sense to you, maybe it was something that you expected? Okay, I'm going to look at responses. Only 2 people have responded, so maybe wait a few more seconds. 3 responses. So this is what he was mentioning, that we looked at Manatee County, we looked at Miami-Dade, looked at some places around the country, Virginia. He talked about the accessory commercial dwelling units. That was something that was new to me, that you could do that in your house. Okay, we have 4 responses. Anybody else? And also I want to make parentheses here. So when we're all done with the PowerPoint presentation and all these questions, we're going to give you an opportunity to unmute yourselves and give some comments. So if there are some of these questions, maybe they don't make sense to you, maybe you want to say a little bit more about it, please hold that thought and we can talk about those live later in the evening. Okay, so we have 5 responses and 80% say that they were not, they didn't have any surprises from those findings. Okay, I'm going to close that one. Go to the next one. So in your opinion, are county residents able to meet their daily needs for fresh groceries within a reasonable distance from their home? And we understand that the county has a wide variety of settings, character areas, you know, from all the way from rural to very urban. But in general, do you think that people have fresh groceries within their reach? Okay, we have 4 responses so far. And this, you know, it could be walking, driving, you know, we're not really concerned about the method of transportation at this point. But in general, can people get to their fresh groceries within a reasonable distance? Okay, so it's about 60-40, with 60% saying no, 40% saying yes. Going to number 4. It's the same question, but this time we want to think about employment opportunities. So when you think about jobs, can people get to their jobs within a reasonable distance from their homes in Hillsborough County? We have 4 responses, and so far it's 100% no. It's like people have to drive a long distance for work.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, we're going to go to number 5. It's exactly the same question, but this time we're asking about healthcare. So whether it's going to the pharmacy or going to a doctor's appointment, dentist, going to an ER, hospital, anything related to healthcare, are they within a reasonable distance from their homes, whether it's driving, walking, or bicycling? Okay, we have 5 responses with 60% no and 40% yes. Okay, we're going to go to number 6. So it's, again, a repeat, but this time we're talking about personal services. So if you need a haircut, if you need your nails done, if you need, you know, anything that has to do with you having to be present to be provided a service, do you have those within a reasonable distance? Or most people in the county, do they have those within a reasonable distance from their homes? In this case, we get a 50-50. It looks like for personal services, it's a little bit easier to get to. We have 4 responses. Anybody else? Okay, if not, we're going to go to number 7. Okay, so now we're going to change it a little bit. So it's not a yes or no question. It has multiple choices. So the question says, besides uses for a household's daily needs, so we're not talking about just fresh groceries or just the nail salon, what other uses should be permitted in new developments near neighborhoods? So anything that you feel that you should have within reach. We're not talking about the coffee shop. So is there anything else that we haven't mentioned that should be available near your neighborhood? And the choices that we're providing include other commercial uses that we didn't consider, like self-storage or big box retailers, or maybe medical and professional offices. What about mixed use? Do you think that it would be a cool idea to have residential above commercial near your neighborhood? Or maybe it's a mix of medical offices above commercial, maybe restaurant on the ground floor or retail and then offices above. And in this case, you can select all the ones that you want, that you would rather see, that you would want to see. Okay. Okay, we have 6 responses, and it looks like a lot of people would like to see that residential above commercial. although medical above commercial is also probably even with the other one. And the lowest percentage is medical professional offices and no votes for other commercial uses. We got 7 responses. Let's take a look at number 8. So now we're going to make an assumption here. Let's assume that you have a corner store and it is within a 15-minute commute from your home. Now, assume that you have adequate transportation facilities, that you don't have to take your life in your hands if you're going to go for a bike ride to that corner store. Assume that you have a beautiful trail, that if it is a sidewalk, you have trees, so it's shaded and it's not so hard or so dangerous. Which method would you use to go to that corner store? Would you still drive? Or would you bike or walk? Would you use a scooter? Would you use public transit or maybe a ride sharing like Uber or Lyft? And again, this is assuming that if you had the best looking sidewalk with the nice shady trees, would you walk or bike to that place? And this is a 15-minute walk or a 15-minute bike or a 15-minute car ride. So I'm going to see what we're getting. We have 4 responses so far. Anybody else? We have 6 now. Looks like most people would walk and followed by a bike ride. So I think that's probably an issue that we have in Florida, that a lot of us would like to walk, we would like to bike, but we just are afraid to do it, or sometimes it's not very comfortable to do it. So that's 7 responses. I'm going to go to the next one, which is number 9. This one says, and it's related to the images that Nick showed earlier. Should those new neighborhood commercial uses be required to connect in some way to the residential uses in their area, whether it's through a driveway or a trail or a sidewalk? Should you have an easier way to get there if it is your corner store, if it is near your neighborhood? It's a yes or no question. Okay, we have 4 responses so far. And they're all for yes, no 5, maybe 1 more. Okay, looks like we stopped at 5. So everybody would like those to be connected. Going to number 10. Looks like a long question here. Should the county require daily commercial uses to provide sufficient buffering? That could be trees, landscaping, or screening, meaning fencing, walls, etc., or other requirements like setbacks, for example, or height limitations, if these uses are located next to residential properties. So do you think that if we're going to allow them, that we will have to have certain protection, whether it's setbacks or trees or fences or walls? Okay, we have 5 responses, 80% yes and 20% no. Okay, gonna go to number 11, almost done. So now let's think about like design techniques. Like if somebody is putting one of these commercial uses next to your home, which design techniques should have the highest priority? Like between buffers, meaning you're going to put either trees or landscaping or walls between the 2 sites, or maybe setbacks, putting the buildings farther away, or actually buffers does not include fencing or walls, or C, fencing and walls. Which one do you think should be the prime way of buffering these uses from the neighborhood? All right, looks like 100% of the respondents feel that the buffers would do the trick. We had 6 responses. Second to last. Now let's talk about the building design. Nick talked about that building in Orlando, that the architecture was so nice, the scale was so nice, and it fits in with the neighborhood. So which building design techniques should have the highest priority when developing commercial uses next to homes? Maybe it's building height, or building form, meaning the setback, how much it covers on the site, the maximum size as it relates to the site, or C, architectural standards, where we talk about the style of the building, the materials, the windows, the canopies. Which of these do you think should have the highest priority? Okay, we have 4 responses so far. I'm going to leave a couple minutes because I know this one is pretty long. Okay, we have about 50-50 between, well, it's changing. So we have 38%, now let me do this again, 50% would be architectural standards, 38% would be building form standards, and 13% think the height should be the priority. The last question, thank you for your patience here. So this has to do with notifying you of these meetings. So how would you like to be notified of future project-related events? And you can select all the ones that you feel are applicable. Would you rather get an email? Or maybe you already get the Planning Commission newsletter and you want to see it there. Maybe the social media pages, Facebook, Instagram, or any that you subscribe to. Maybe just updates on the Planning Commission website, or just the project website, and Nick gave you the address and the QR code. Do you think you can just go there and look for any notifications, or maybe it's something else that we haven't heard of? If you want to mark all that apply, and then we look at the response. We have 5 responses so far. Basically a tie for the first 4: email, newsletter, social media, website, and then a little less for updates on the project website or other. And that was 5 responses. So like I mentioned before, this is it for the polling. As soon as Nick is done with the PowerPoint, we'll open the microphones and we'll start listening to specific comments or questions that you may have. So thank you for responding to all these questions. Nick.
Thank you, Pat. So the next steps in the CLC update process. Next, we're going to begin the case study analysis, which is part of our research and analysis that we've been conducting over the past month or so. We will continue the public engagement side of things. Just be aware that the second community meeting that you'll be able to take part in is tentatively scheduled for the 3rd week in January. We're hoping to hit that week, and we're hoping to have some of those more specific dates to you soon. Additionally, right before the Thanksgiving break, and then after that, and we'll work with staff, we're going to hopefully have the draft of the first update to the CLC, which will be available for review on the county website prior to the second community meeting, which, like I said earlier, is ideally and tentatively scheduled for the 3rd week in January 2022. Now, if you have any questions or comments about anything on today's presentation, or just have a question at all related to commercial activity, we deeply encourage you to contact Ms. Andrea Popendrew, who is definitely an expert in this conversation and this topic, and she'd be happy to answer your questions. She's actually on the call here today. Her contact information is below. And if you'd like to just have some general input that you'd love the community to see, that you think is important, that the community member could maybe comment on, or maybe just to even take the survey, we recommend you visit the public input website using that QR code and that tiny URL link provided. Additionally, continue to keep up with the project, not only on the public input website, but also on the county's project website. Of course, just like the tiny URL above for the public input website, the county's project website, it has a QR code available right next to it, along with a link. Andrea will be happy to post both of those links in this chat before you leave here today. And the last thing we just wanted to say was, as your presenter, thank you so much. I know I talked a lot. Hopefully we hear a little bit more from you today. That's all the big information that we have to give you. But of course, the most important part, your feedback, was greatly appreciated during the polling and will continue to be greatly appreciated throughout the comments and questions you have after today's meeting. Before everyone goes or continues to stay for any of their questions or comments, staff, was there anything that you wanted to mention before some members of the public leave if they don't have any additional questions or comments?
This is Melissa Leinhardt with the Planning Commission. I think you all did a great job covering everything. I don't have anything to add, but I'm certainly here for questions.
Great, thank you so much. We'll go ahead and if Pat, do they unmute themselves? Are you going to unmute them or?
Yes, so I allowed them to unmute themselves so they can do that if they have a question. We only have 9 people in attendance. If you want to just unmute yourself and go ahead and ask the question or give us your comment, go ahead and do that. So any questions, comments, suggestions as we embark on this work? Doesn't look like we have any takers. We're here until 8, so any questions that you may have, we're here to answer. I guess we don't have any. Do we have any? Okay, there is a note on the chat. What happens to the projects that are already in the county for rezoning?
I can answer that.
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Yeah, I can help with that.
And so, you can turn on your camera if you feel inclined to do that, because I unlocked those too.
Oh, thank you. I see that now. Hi, Denise. This is Melissa Leinhardt. I was speaking before when I did the introductions, but now you can actually see me. I can answer that question. What happens to projects that are already in the county for rezoning? So if you're already in the queue for rezoning, whatever was approved at the time, so whatever language was adopted in the comprehensive plan, that is the language that you will be reviewed under. So if you're waiting to file a rezoning and say this gets approved in, I don't know, May of 2022, find the final language, and I'm just throwing that out there, so nobody hold me to that, please. Say this gets approved in May and you submit an application in June, then you would go under the new language. But anything that's in the queue now, or anything that gets submitted before the new language is adopted, it's still under the commercial locational criteria that we have adopted now in the plan.
Thank you so much, Denise. Appreciate it.
You're quite welcome. Anyone else? We're here. You have our undivided attention.
Yeah.
So Denise, your comment about Citrus Park, that is interesting, but Citrus Park has an overlay district and that will not be going away with this project. As many of you know, we have 22 adopted community plans within unincorporated Hillsborough County. Citrus Park is one of them. There's a community plan, and then there's also land development code language that helps implement that community plan. That's that overlay district and all the various subsections that talk about what uses are allowed where, what form is allowed where. That all will stay the same. We are not touching the community plans with this project. You're welcome.
Okay. We still have 8 people in attendance. 6 if we don't count Andrea and Melissa. Anybody else has a question or comment? It's a smaller group now. I don't see any. So I think people maybe wanted to go have dinner instead.
Oh, I do see someone typing.
Okay. How do we get this information to other communities? In terms of the work that we're going through, the best way to do this is to share that website with other people. That way they can go in, they can see contact information, who to call. They can see any documents that we have produced, PowerPoints, notes from meetings. They can find those there. And, participate in the idea wall. If they want to leave comments, they can leave comments there. They don't have to contact Andrea or anybody. They can just leave the comment there anonymously. And Nick, I think this question is for you.
Sure. Just a quick note, the meeting summary of today, the presentation, and of course, the recording of the meeting today will all be uploaded to the website. So if they didn't get a chance to attend today, feel free to share that project website information with your friends, neighbors, what have you, coworkers, and they will be able to see everything that went on here tonight. So now all that information. Now, what information was reviewed in terms of best practices, as Nick mentioned that early in his presentation. So coming from a little bit of a research background myself, I started with professional and national organizations. Some of the leading experts is who I went to first in terms of the planning field: the Urban Land Institute, the American Association, or I'm sorry, the American Planning Association. They have a wealth of great planning literature and documents which talk about neighborhood convenience uses or neighborhood commercial uses or neighborhood corner stores, whatever you want to call them. They have a numerous documents in terms of what's the appropriate zoning, what's the best future land use, where's the state of the retail market. These are all things that were reviewed as part of this effort. Of course, nobody had the magical answer of this is exactly what you need to do to have the perfect commercial locational criteria. We didn't expect them to, but all of that information was reviewed in addition to some equity studies, and that also includes some literature from universities and research institutions. And I see you're continuing to type. By the way, the literature review will be uploaded to the website once it's all ready and packaged for you. That literature review does have our complete list of sources that we reviewed as part of this effort. So I certainly recommend anyone to take a look at some of those sources, just so I feel like my efforts were not in vain and all those countless hours and my coworkers' countless hours reviewing those documents.
Okay, then it's just that she hopes it's posted soon.
Yes, I hope so as well. It'll be on our project website. I believe Melissa and Andrea, I believe you are also looking to post that information as well.
Oh, we certainly can, sure. And we also are available, Andrea's contact information that you flashed, it's on the website. You can reach out to me or Andrea. Our emails are on the Planning Commission website. I do think the project website has Andrea's phone number, I think. So you're welcome to reach out and request information that you think would be helpful.
Yes, and we do have the literature review project website currently, but it's just the document review that we are still reviewing and wrapping up. But the literature review should be on there, the project website.
Perfect. Yep. So you've done some as well. If you have any literature that you feel would be particularly applicable to this project, please, please, please share that with us. We will review it. I promise. I don't have much of a life outside of this particular type of work, so I will read it, I promise. So if you have some of those resources, share them, and we will go ahead and review them. And of course, we're happy to share any research we did with you as well.
Great. Thank you so much for the questions.
Yes, thank you so much. Nobody ever asked about that stuff.
How does that have a life?
Yeah, that is true.
It does feel that way from time to time, doesn't it?
Thank you.
I don't. All right. What do you think, guys? Last opportunity for we're down to 6 people. I think people have been leaving, but I don't know if those who are still in the meeting, if anybody has any questions, comments, suggestions in writing or spoken. And if not, please go to the website. That's the best thing you can do next is go to that website, leave us some comments, take the survey, and get the information about future meetings from there. So if okay with you, Melissa, I think we can wrap it up.
I think so.
All right. Thank you so much, everyone, for attending, and we hope to see you at the next event, which should be so hopefully sometime in January.
Yes, thank you all very much, and don't hesitate to reach out with any questions or comments.
Thank you again.
All right, thank you.
Bye, thanks.
Thanks, Pat and Nick. Have a good night.
You
Thank
too.
you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.